Hey, it's Philbert, and I want to talk about a practice in the industry that just needs to go away. I find it extremely anti consumer. It is archaic. It made some sense in the history, but now it is pointless, and that is upgrade versions of video games. We mostly see this with the Switch 1 to Switch 2 now, but it really kicked off from what I saw the PS4 to PS5 transition. So, generally, when a console's end of life, a company is developing a game for it, they don't want to just limit to that old console, so they have versions for the new console too. And if you go back super far, this made a lot more sense because I'm talking like early mid 90s stuff from like the original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, or even like the PS1 to PS2. These games that got double releases sometimes are completely different game, so that made even more sense. But regardless, the transition in hardware jumps was so vast up until really like 7th to 8th gen, which were PS4 to PS5 and even PS3 to PS4. But back then too, the media formats that the games came on were just way different. Nintendo, you had different cartridges. With PlayStation and Xbox, you're going from CD to DVD to Blu-ray, and I forget the UHD or whatever Xbox 360 would call itself. And still, the jumps in media in the game size and all that made more sense to sometimes have two versions. But as we kind of get closer to the late 2010s, getting up to like 2020 with the launch of the PS5, we started seeing like that PS4 to PS5 edition. And there's just no reason for this. Adding Filbert here, and to be really specific, I'm talking about paid upgrades, not the free upgrades, and specifically paid upgrades that didn't add extra content. Almost always it was to take advantage of the hardware. And what really kicked off this conversation by me was the re-release of Skyrim on Nintendo Switch 2. And yes, it's a meme that this is like the 20th time Skyrim has been released. And I want to be clear, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's great. I seriously do. I don't like games being locked to a console or hardware, and games being ported really released is good for accessibility, preservation. And a game like Skyrim, it came out in 2011. It's almost 15 years old now. So there's a lot of people who are like 15, 20. They've maybe never played it, and now they decide, hey, I'm going to pick it up and try it. And that's fantastic. Now, there's a whole tangent I could go on. I'm not going to about the pricing model of kind of these re-releases and ports, but we'll save that for another day. But point being, games being re-released isn't bad. Like, I generally think it's a good thing. The big problem for me is putting artificial caps on the performance in aspects like resolution and being able to use like the hardware, like the mouse for the Switch. Again, we're talking about Skyrim, a game that's come out on the 7th, 8th, and now 9th gen systems. It's been on PC since 2011. This isn't like the first time they're taking the game from 1080 to 1440 or 4K, or adding different types of ways to play the game. I mean, there's VR versions of the game. So this is not really, again, any different than if you upgrade your PC monitor and then you had to pay to play on 1440, or on PC, and if you want to use the mouse and keyboard, you got to pay like another DLC cost. One thing to make sure we have clear too, which I'll give them props for, is when Skyrim first came to Switch, it's generally called the Special Edition. It's like the final version of Skyrim with like the DLCs and whatnot. And then I believe it was in 2019, they did Skyrim Anniversary Edition, which lets a game run like on 64-bit, or at least read like 64-bit code in its script for mod support. It improved some of the gameplay. It added new things like survival mode, and then it added a bunch of like the official Bethesda Workshop mods. So I forget, it's like 100 or some mods, something like that, are also included. So if you have the anniversary edition, you do get a free upgrade and you're peachy. And that's right, and that's how it should be. If you have the special edition version, you can still play that version on Switch 2, but you have to pay for the upgrade. And I am fine with a price for the upgrade to get that additional content, specifically that survival mode and all like the official Bethesda DLCs that they had like in their creator shop. That's not the problem, even though that's a little bit of a problem, but not what we're talking about. The problem is that special edition version, you still can't get 60 FPS. You still are not getting the higher resolution and the better performance, which the game is capable of. Again, on PC, this game was playing way above 60 FPS. Like the special edition, we're not talking about the anniversary, but the special edition was able to achieve higher resolutions. And again, I'm not even talking about upgraded texture packs, which were included in the anniversary. I can get a game that only has texture packs in 1080 and still play that game in a 1440 or 4K resolution, and it will look better. I play a lot of GameCube games using like the Dolphin emulation, and I play those with higher resolution than what the default GameCube could put out, 1440. So we're talking about limiting that version of Skyrim to artificially cap the throttle, and I think that is an awful thing we're kind of seeing occur, and stuff like that shouldn't be locked behind a paid DLC upgrade. This reminds me, I forget what car company it was, where there's a car company a few years ago. I remember the news story was going around, and everyone is rightfully kind of pissed off. Was all their cars just had heated seats, but to take advantage of the heated seats, you had to pay a subscription to use them. And even though if you bought that car, if you didn't pay that subscription, you had all the hardware. You literally had heated seats in your car, but you had to pay a monthly subscription to use it. And that is, again, something we should not tolerate, whether it is with cars or video games. And if there's anyone who's going to try and defend this practice, I think just you're being silly. And I do understand there's no free lunch. Like them re-releasing Skyrim on Switch 2 does take time, money, labor from Bethesda. Like someone had to go into a Switch version and still do some programming to get it work with the mouse, to edit probably a couple lines of code, probably download a mod that changes the resolution. But I'm not denying, I'm kind of joking a little bit, but I'm not denying it does take work. Like that's the modern video game industry. Like we kind of expect and in some ways feel entitled, and should in some situations be entitled to expect some basic form of support and updates. And I'm not shedding a tear for a game like, or a company like Bethesda, because we're talking about Skyrim. The reason Skyrim has 20 re-releases is because it keeps making them money. So even given those Switch 1 people, this is a free update, they're not saving that much money because people are still going to be buying this. Again, the game's been out for so long that there's constantly new generations of gamers who are coming around to buy this version. I want to end on a positive note, though, because kind of the issue we're talking about only exists because of a good thing, and that is how much more accessible games are because of ports and re-releases. Going back 15 years ago, these types of issues were uncommon because when a game got released, it came out on its system, and that's just where it lived and died. And even when you look at a platform like PC, a lot of times when you do those big upgrades from DOS to Windows 95, 98, or from 98 to XP, so on, you would lose a lot of the ability to play older titles. And on PC, it was easier, but really, I would say until like the mid 2000s, when there became a lot of tools and a lot of knowledge to kind of get older PC games working better, or you had utilities like that's when stuff like DOSBox came around that basically made playing a lot of these old DOS games just a flip of a switch now. So that's kind of the positive I want to end on, is the fact Skyrim came out in 2011, and even this issue aside, that you can play on essentially any console from 2011 until now, or on any computer almost effortlessly, is awesome. And it's not just Skyrim. So many games have become like that. Backwards compatibility has got so good with consoles, and even when I'm playing games on my PC, there are a lot of games in my Steam library or GOG library that, again, released around the time of Skyrim, during that like 8th gen era, came out maybe even on like that 6th gen era, that often I can still boot up and play easily enough, or there are at least tools and guides and tutorials and places like YouTube that you can just discover ways to play a lot of games that it was not always true. A lot of different titles like were locked behind their system, or essentially locked behind the OS they were programmed to run on. So that's kind of my positive note, is for what it's worth, this issue, we're only complaining and talking about it because of a good thing in the industry. And last thing I want to touch on, which I always try and bring up, is I run a club called EXP Monthly. If you are new here coming across this video, I got links in the description. It is essentially a book club, but for video games. The gist of it is generally every month we pick a game. People are encouraged to play it, share about it. If you like to stream or make content, you are welcome to always post that in the Discord. End of the month, I do a podcast where generally I host it and invite people within the community to be on it. And we talk about the game from all aspects, breaking down the story, the narrative, the gameplay mechanics, but also your experience with the game. Was it your first time? What were your first time thoughts? A lot of the games you're playing are a little bit older, so did you play as a kid or a teenager? And talk about your experience and memories back then. And I try and have a lot of community engagement. And the big thing about EXP Monthly I want to always touch on is I try and foster a positive atmosphere. Because the big issue I have with a lot of modern gaming discussion, and granted, I'm a little bit of that problem with this video, but is there's a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of complaining, a lot of being cynical. When I do bring up issues I have with games or industry, I try and don't get overly screamy and cynical unless if it's part of a gag. But with EXP Monthly, it is a lot more about celebrating games than it is about essentially bitching and moaning, and having a positive, fun environment to talk and discuss the industry with other like-minded people. So if that sounds like something up your alley, it's a way to kind of come across games you maybe never heard of, play games in your backlog, or just hang out with some cool people. Check out the links below. Go to expmonthly.com. You can get information there, link to the Discord there. And I'm Philbert. I hope you're having a good one, and I'll catch you next time.